Hello guys and welcome back. Today's new project, the Jagdpanzer 38T from Academy in 1:35 scale. This little tank destroyer was waiting in my stash and caught my attention. The construction process didn't look too complicated, but the kit looked nicely detailed regardless. Like with most kits, I begin with the lower half and the running gear. All parts are carefully removed from their sprue with side cutters and then cleaned up with my hobby knife and sandpaper if needed. Let's talk a bit about the history of this vehicle. The Jagdpanzer 38T is based on the chassis for the Panzerkampfwagen 38T. The tank was designed in Czechoslovakia, but after the German invasion during the Second World War, it was quickly implemented and produced for the Wehrmacht. In this case, the T has nothing to do with the weight, but it is the first letter of the German name for Czechoslovakia. Most German tanks that originated in a different country or were captured had the first letter of their previous owner's nation at the end. The Hetzer's impact on the war is debatable. Some say it was just bad and would have made no difference, while others claim it was the best tank destroyer of the Wehrmacht and could have changed the outcome if it was introduced earlier. But a full analysis would be too long to put in this video. The road wheels are kept in a pair of twos attached to a leaf suspension. You have to keep a close eye on the instructions here during these steps, because there are two different numbers for the suspensions, one for the back and one for the front. Academy used many guiding holes on their pieces. This makes lining them up a lot simpler and ensures a correct placement at all time. While I continue on the running gear, a quick update about the channel. As you might have seen, the upload schedule has become a bit less frequent than it already was, and I want to apologize about that. I am currently in the middle of renovating my new place, which takes away a lot of time. It will continue to be like that for the next few months, but once I am done, I hope to upload more again and start working on bigger projects too. Thank you all for your patience. Parts like the drive sprocket are really well detailed. Most of this will be hidden inside the two parts and hardly visible, but they took the time to add all these bolts anyway. Identifying the Hetzer variant is very easy when you take a look at the idler wheel. The early variant has 12 holes, the mid variant only 6, and on the late variant there are only 4 holes left. One small downside of this kit is the fact that they did not include any polycaps for the wheels. All wheels are only temporarily attached to help me get the track in the right position. To keep them from falling off, I have to use poster tack in this case. And speaking about the tracks, the included ones are link and length. They look really good and are nicely detailed. They do have some ejector pin marks, but all of them are on the inside between the track teeth. On the finished tank you can barely see them, and even less after painting and weathering. I marked the first link on the longer piece with white ink. That's the point where I have to start curving the track. I want to build these tracks in the same way I did on the Abrams and the King Tiger. If it works, I can still remove them and paint them separately from the wheels. If you want to glue tracks like this, any thin cement like Tamiya Extra Thin works really well. The glue flows right between the links and ensures a strong bond. I cover all of them in set glue and then let them sit for a few minutes. And now the track stays together, but is still flexible enough to be bent around the drive sprocket and idler wheel. This step is quite tricky and you will need some practice. If you are happy with the position, you can fix the track with some tape until it has completely dried. I don't want to glue any of the wheels to the tracks on accident. If your track is very unstable, you could keep the tracks and wheels together, but that would make painting a little bit harder. With the tracks done, I can continue finishing the hull. Some tools are stored at the back of the tank. I am attaching these now because this part will be quite hard to reach later. Spare tracks are attached to the rear plate. They are held in place with these brackets. I thought about keeping them separate for painting, but I would probably lose the brackets in the progress. The engine deck itself is made from separate panels that could be kept open, but the engine compartment will be empty unless you have a spare engine or want to scratch build one. Included in the box are some photo-etched parts for the engine grille and exhaust. If you want to cut photo-etched parts, do it on a hard surface to minimize the risk of bending the parts on accident. And for gluing photo-etched parts, you should use super glue. Small parts may stick if you use regular plastic cement and press them into the soft plastic, but larger parts will require a different glue for them to stay where you want them to. And if you're working with super glue, I suggest tweezers, because otherwise you may end up gluing these parts to your fingers instead. The upper hull has a few details and hatches as well. Here I made the mistake of gluing them all in the closed position. But because I want to use the included figures, I will have to reopen them later. I can now add the rear deck. The fit was surprisingly good and it left no large gaps I would have to worry about and fill up with putty. In general, the fit of all these parts is quite good and better than I expected. This periscope is one of the reasons I had to reopen the hatches. I will paint the inside black just in case to hide the empty interior. The kit includes 3 barrels. 2 are for the late variant and 1 is for this early Hetzer variant. I really like that they chose to do full barrels instead of 2 halves. That way you have a lot less mess to clean later and don't need to align anything. The barrel itself is glued inside the gun mantlet. Here you have to watch out to position the barrel right in the middle to not make it look crooked. You don't get a gun breech for the inside, but the gun is designed in a way to keep the barrel movable. I want to keep barrel and mantlet separate for now, to make painting later easier. The last photo-etched part is for the exhaust. You need to bend the photo-etched part around this plastic piece. I found it easier to bend the part a little bit more by hand, so that it fits snugly. The upper and lower hull can now finally be joined together. The fit was good here too. I just had to press a little at the rear to get everything to slide where it was supposed to go. The Hetzer has side skirts as well. Very short ones, but he has them. I will keep them separate for now, because they would block the tracks. This is the machine gun. I really like the level of detail, and even the barrel is drilled out. What I did not know was that the machine gun was remote controlled in reality and could be used from inside the tank. In my opinion, the included handles look way too thick. That's why I replaced them with self-made ones made from 3mm copper wire. I think they look a lot better, and they can even be bent and damaged. For the towing cables, you get a piece of string you have to attach to these towing cable eyes. Super glue works really well here, and I used a toothpick to apply the glue more precisely. As for my own additions and modifications, I would like to add more pronounced welds. To do this, I first have to widen the affected areas a little. Now I need some green stuff until both parts are well mixed. I can now press a small amount of the green stuff into the appropriate cracks. So far it still looks very messy, but I will improve it in the next steps. I tried to push the green stuff around a little to achieve the desired effect. Using a reference from real welds is really helpful on this step. According to some pictures I saw, the kit is missing welds across the side panels. I roll the green stuff into a very thin noodle and then attach it to the side. I am not 100% sure if I like how that turned out. For the next time I have to make a dedicated tool instead of using a toothpick, I think. And I have to watch Night Shift's tutorials on weld beads again, just to be safe. Okay, enough with the weld beads. Let's switch to something a lot simpler, armor texture. My go-to putty is AK modeling putty. It's water-based and paint has no problems sticking to it. The alternatives like Tamiya putty all have to be thinned with plastic cement or Tamiya's airbrush cleaner, which is basically the same product but cheaper. All I have to do is apply the putty with an old brush to the desired panels where I want to enhance the texture. After a few minutes the putty starts to become firmer, then I can go over it with a brush and refine the texture a little bit more. The sides and front were made from rolled steel. The texture shouldn't be too strong here, however I still find the raw plastic too smooth for that. The gun mantlet and surrounding parts were instead made from cast steel. This has a much more noticeable and rougher texture than the rolled steel. To do this, I simply need to apply a thicker layer of putty and let the texture stand out a bit more. Here on the plastic mantlet you can see that there was a texture already added to the parts. It would probably look good on its own, but I want to give it the same look as the rest of the parts I just did. This is the texture after letting everything dry. But it is not finished yet, because it would look a bit too rough and out of scale like this. I need to sand and smooth all textured panels with a fine grit sanding sponge. In this case, a soft sponge is more suitable than a sanding stick to reach into and around all the corners. The tow rope supplied is attached here. Winding a rope like this around here seems a bit complicated to me. Instead, I'm going to make another tow rope out of a twisted piece of wire. This can then be easily bent into shape and reworked. It then retains its shape and can be attached later with superglue. The set even included 2 matching towing eyes in addition to the ones I already used. I will store the tow rope made from the cord earlier somewhere else on the tank. Another thing I would like to improve is this far too thick piece of metal that protects the gunner's sides. All I need is a leftover piece of the included photo etched parts. I simply bend it into the appropriate shape and attach it with superglue. It looks much better now, don't you think? Here are the figures that were included. Since the figures were designed quite simply and weren't particularly difficult to build, you can see the end result right away. However, both figures have to make contact with the vehicle, so you should build them after the vehicle is finished in order to adapt them accordingly. Last but not least, some damage is missing. The mud flaps are the easiest place to do this. All I need is a pair of pliers. I carefully bend all the parts back and forth without breaking anything. Even small bends are easy to see, so I don't necessarily have to overdo the effect here. And that should be it for now. Let's take a look at the current progress. Honestly, this kit was a lot more detailed than I expected it to be. Overall, I think it turned out really well until here. The next part will be all about painting and weathering this little tank destroyer. If you enjoyed it, please like the video and subscribe to my channel to not miss any future uploads. If you have any feedback or suggestions, let me know in the comments. Thank you all for watching and see you next time.